The vow of silence. Eli Voss stood alone in the ruins of war. The battlefield was quiet now. The smoke had faded. The screams had stopped. But Eli could still hear them in his mind, every cry, every blast, every goodbye. He looked at the weapon, in his hand. It was blackened with dust, blood, and memories. He dropped it to the ground. "I'm done," he whispered. That was the last time he ever picked up a weapon. Months passed. Eli disappeared from the known systems. He left behind the army, the medals, and the blood. He found peace on a small alien moon called Veralune. The planet was calm, filled with soft blue grass and strange glowing trees. No cities, no war, just quiet. Eli built a small house near a stream. He farmed simple crops, drank clean water, and spoke to no one. The villagers nearby knew him as the silent human. They left him alone. That's how he liked it. He never told them he was once a soldier. He never told them how many
he had killed.
He never told them why he had stopped. One rainy night, something changed. Thunder rolled across the sky. Rain hit the metal roof. Eli sat by the fire, reading an old book. Then, a knock on the door. He froze. No one ever came here. Another knock. This time, weaker. Like someone had no strength left. Eli opened the door, hand near a hidden knife just in case. But what he saw wasn't danger. It was a girl. An alien girl. Young, thin, and soaking wet. Her skin was a soft violet color, glowing faintly in the dark. She had no shoes, no coat, and no weapon. Her large, silver eyes looked up at him with fear. Before he could speak, she collapsed in his arms. Eli placed her on the couch. Her body was cold. He covered her in a blanket and made a hot drink. She woke up slowly, shivering. "Where am I?" she asked in a trembling voice. "You're safe," Eli said softly. "Just rest." She blinked, unsure. "You're human?" Eli nodded. "I won't hurt you." She looked around, confused. "They said humans don't help, that you're all killers." Eli looked away. He didn't answer. Over the next few days, she slowly recovered. Her name was Saya. She was only 16 years old in human terms. She didn't say much, just sat by the fire holding her knees, eyes always on the door. Eli gave her food, water, and blankets. She kept asking to leave, but never did. One night, he finally asked, "Who are you running from?" She looked at him. Her voice shook. "They're called the Hunters. They wear black masks. They take people like me. They burn villages. My mother told me to run." Eli's jaw clenched. The name sounded familiar, but he said nothing. Saya leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I saw them 2 nights ago. They're near." Eli stared at the fire. The shadows flickered like ghosts. "Still," he said, "I don't fight anymore." The next morning, Eli walked into the forest. He needed to clear his head. But halfway through the trail, he saw something on a tree, a strange mark like a double claw slash. He froze. That mark was not alien. It was a human military code, a hunting sign. His chest tightened. He remembered those symbols, from his past, from the Black Ops unit that had broken away from command. Mercenaries, traitors, slavers, they used to be his teammates. Back at the house, Saya watched him come in. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked. He nodded. She stood up, fists tight. "You said you won't fight, but they're here. They'll take me, kill you, burn your farm, and you'll just watch?" Eli didn't answer. His face was cold, eyes empty. He poured water into a pot and turned on the fire. Saya shouted, "Why are you pretending peace exists?" He turned to her slowly. "Because I've seen what war does," he said, "and I promised I'd never be part of it again." Saya stepped back, breathing hard. "But what if war finds you again?" she asked. Eli didn't answer. He just stared at the flame and saw the past rising in it like smoke. The nights on Veralune were longer than Earth's. But for Saya, even the moonlight felt like a trap. Every sound outside made her flinch. Every gust of wind through the trees felt like footsteps. She slept sitting up back against the wall, clutching a small wooden stick like a weapon. Eli Voss noticed everything but said nothing. He respected silence. It was something he understood better than most. One night, Saya woke up screaming. Eli rushed in holding a lamp. She was curled in a corner, her face wet with sweat and tears. "No fire. Please. Not again." "It's all right," Eli said, kneeling near her. "There's no fire. No one's here." She blinked at him. Her hands shook. "I smelled it again," she whispered. "The burning metal. The same smell from that night. They're near, I know it." Eli didn't argue. Instead, he brought her water and sat down on the floor. They both stared at the dark ceiling above. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Saya asked softly, "Why did you stop fighting?" Eli closed his eyes. The firelight flickered across the scars on his arms. "I followed orders," he said, "even when they were wrong. And one day, I gave an order that got children killed." Saya didn't say anything. Eli looked at her. "I swore never to hold a weapon again." "But what if someone needs saving?" she whispered. Eli didn't answer. The question hung in the air like smoke. The next day, Eli began preparing the cellar. He didn't say why. Saya didn't ask. He cleaned out tools, cleared space, and moved food supplies inside. He also hid a shock beacon, an old military device, under a loose floorboard, just in case. Saya watched silently. That evening, she stood by the window, arms crossed, and asked, "Do you believe they'll come?" Eli nodded once. "Yes." "Then why don't you run?" He looked up at her, calm. "Because I don't run from people I once called brothers." Saya frowned. "You mean the hunters were humans?" Eli said nothing. Her eyes widened. "You knew them?" "I trained with them," he said quietly. "Long ago." Later that night, Saya sat beside the stream behind the house. The moon made the water glow silver. She dipped her feet in, shivering. Eli came and sat beside her, carrying 2 mugs of warm juice. He gave her one. "Why did they target your village?" he asked. Saya looked down. "Because of what I am." Eli raised an eyebrow. "I'm a hybrid," she said softly. "My mother was Veralunian, but my father was from another race. The galaxy hates what doesn't fit. They say we're mistakes." Eli didn't speak. Saya looked at him, eyes shining. But he was brave. He was a soldier. He saved people during the invasion of Kaltos 9. Eli's eyes sharpened. That name, it shook something inside him. "Wait," he said. "Kaltos 9? She nodded. "What was your father's name?" Saya whispered. "General Thalos Zera." Eli stared into the trees. That name, it wasn't just familiar. It was the name of the only alien who ever stood beside him in war. Thalos Zera had saved his life once, shielding him from enemy fire with nothing but his body and a broken shield. And now, his daughter was sitting next to him. That night, Eli stood in his storage shed, staring at the locked chest in the corner. His old military case, untouched for years. He ran his fingers over the lock. He could still remember the code, but he didn't open it. Not yet. The next morning, something was off. Birds were silent. Saya was inside, making breakfast, when Eli rushed in. "Pack your things," he said. Her eyes widened. "They're here?" He nodded. 3 kilometers out, black ship, same logo. Her lips trembled. "Will you fight them?" Eli looked at her, face carved from stone. "I gave a vow." She reached for his hand, gripping it tight. "I don't care about your vow," she said, voice shaking. "I care about staying alive." Eli gently pulled his hand away. "Get in, the cellar, and don't come out unless I say." Saya disappeared underground. Alone now, Eli walked into the shed. He unlocked the old chest and opened it. Inside, his uniform, his weapons, his old badge, and a photo of his squad. Among them, the face of a man he once called Captain Wreck, now the leader of the hunters. Eli picked up a worn-out blaster rifle. He stared at it, then closed the lid again. He didn't take the weapon, not yet. He still had one more day to keep his vow. But deep inside, something was changing, and it began with one simple truth. He owed a dead man's daughter a second chance. Traces of the past, the forest no longer felt like home. Eli Voss walked slowly between the trees, boots sinking into the soft moss of Veralune. The wind carried no sound, no birds, no insects. It was too quiet. He knew that silence. It was the same silence before a battle. He knelt near a tree and touched a mark carved into the bark. 2 sharp slashes crossed by a third. Hunter sign. He whispered, "So, it's really them." This wasn't just any raiding group. This was the same unit. He once trained with Unit Black Veil, a secret squad turned mercenary. He had left them years ago after the massacre at Egron Prime. He thought they had disappeared. Now they were here, and they were hunting Saya. Back at the house, Saya was waiting. She had packed her small bag, just as Eli told her. She sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest, staring at the locked trapdoor that led to the cellar. When Eli walked in, she looked up sharply. "Well?" she asked. "They're close," Eli said. "A day or less." Saya's hands trembled. "Will you fight them this time?" Eli didn't answer. Instead, he placed a small black disc on the table. It was an old tracking suppressor, military tech. He activated it. A soft humming filled the room. "They won't be able to find us by sensors now," he said. "But we're still not safe." Saya stood. "They won't stop, you know." Eli looked at her. "They never do," she continued. "Not until I'm gone or until someone stops them." He looked away. "You knew them, didn't you?" she asked. "The hunters." Eli finally nodded. "I knew them, before they turned into what they are now." That night, Eli lit the fireplace and sat across from her. The air was heavy with memories. "You asked me why I stopped fighting," he said. "Let me tell you what happened." Saya listened silently. "I was part of a special ops team, Black Veil. We did the jobs no one else wanted. Deep space extractions, infiltration, even assassination. At first I believed we were helping the galaxy." He looked into the fire. His voice grew bitter. "But one day they told us to clean a village. Your father's village. They claimed it was a rebel base. We landed, no resistance, no weapons, just families. But the captain gave the order anyway." Saya's eyes widened. "You were there?" "I didn't follow the order. I tried to stop it. Your father saved my life that day. He got civilians to safety while I held back my own team." He swallowed hard. "When it was over, I walked away. I dropped my weapon and never looked back." Silence. Only the crackling of fire. Then Saya whispered, "You knew him. You fought with him." Eli nodded. "He died a hero." Her hands tightened into fists. "Then why are you hiding now? If you owe him, why are you letting his daughter die like he did?" Her voice cracked at the end. Eli looked at her, something shifting in his eyes. He stood up and walked to the storage room. This time he didn't just open the chest. He reached inside. The next morning, Eli sat outside sharpening a long blade. Not a gun, not explosives. Just steel. Silent and personal. Saya walked out and stared at him. "You're preparing to fight." He didn't stop. "I'm preparing to protect," he said. "That's different." She smiled. Just a little. Later, that day they worked together. Eli showed her how to use the tracking suppressor, how to recognize certain sounds in the forest, and how to move without leaving footprints. "You're training me?" she asked. "You're part of this now," he replied. "You deserve to survive." Saya hesitated, then asked, Do you think I'm a mistake? Eli looked at her with steady eyes. I think you're the reason I'm picking up a weapon again. That night it rained again. But this time Saya didn't scream. She slept, clutching the wooden stick, but with a calm face. In her dreams the shadows came, but someone stood in their way. A man. A warrior. A protector, Eli. In the distance, beyond the forest, a black ship sat silently in the hills. Inside, armored figures reviewed a hologram of the land. One of them grunted. Signal's gone. The girl's hidden. Someone's helping her. Another voice replied, low and sharp. If it's him, we'll make him regret ever turning on us. Back at the cabin, Eli stood in the dark, watching the hills through binoculars. His fingers tapped the old scar on his wrist, the one his captain gave him the day he left Black Veil. He wasn't afraid. He was ready. And when the hunters arrived, they'd learn that not all ghosts stay buried. They came at dusk. The sun dipped low over the hills of Veralune. A quiet orange glow covered the forest. But Eli Voss wasn't looking at the sunset. His eyes were locked on the shadows moving between the trees. Shadows, shaped like soldiers. He stood behind a thick tree holding old binoculars. The moment he had feared was here. The hunters had arrived. 3 figures moved like wolves, fast, quiet, and deadly. They wore black armor with red slashes across their helmets. Their rifles had no safety lights. These men didn't hunt animals. They hunted lives. Eli's jaw tightened. One of them stopped near a broken log and looked down. He bent and touched the moss. A small footprint. Fresh. Saya's. The lead hunter grinned under his mask. Target's close. The girl is near. Another voice replied, What about the human? He's not a problem, the leader said. Voss won't fight again. Eli heard everything from his hidden perch. He closed his eyes for a second. They still think I'm weak. Back at the cabin, Saya sat underground in the cellar. Her hands clutched a small lantern. The space was cramped and cold, but she stayed quiet, just like Eli told her. She trusted him now. Fully. Upstairs, Eli set traps. Silent alarms, wire snares, flash flares. He moved like a shadow himself. Each step measured, each breath calm. He didn't carry a gun, just a long knife, a smoke canister, and the will to protect. As the sky turned dark, he whispered to himself, Just a few hours. Hold them off. Make them doubt. He placed Saya's old wooden stick near the door. It was no real weapon, but maybe she'd feel safer with it. Then it began. A rustle at the edge of the cabin, a knock, not from the front, but from the side wall. Metal against wood. Eli didn't answer. Another knock. Then silence. A voice called out, deep and familiar. Eli. We know you're in there. Eli's fingers curled around the handle of his blade. You don't have to die today, the voice continued. Give us the girl, this isn't your war. Eli stepped to the door, calm as stone. He answered with a whisper. You made it my war the day you came to my doorstep. Crash! The back window shattered. A grenade flew in, but instead of exploding, it released gas. Eli rolled away, slammed the vent closed, and tossed a counter-gas pellet from his belt. The air snapped clean, but it was only the beginning. 2 hunters burst through the door. Fast, silent. Eli moved faster. He kicked the first into the table. Wood splintered. The second raised his rifle, too slow. Eli's blade flashed. 1 hit, a scream. The rifle dropped. He didn't kill, just disabled, but his message was clear. I still remember how to fight. Outside, the leader watched through his scope. He grinned behind his helmet. Well, the old dog still has bite. He tapped his comm. Bring in the fire team, no more games. Back in the cellar, Saya flinched as the ceiling shook. Boom. Crash. Screams. She reached for her wooden stick, but dropped it. It wasn't enough. She closed her eyes, whispering something in her own language. Please live. Please fight. Eli dragged the wounded hunter outside and tied him to a tree. The second one ran back into the woods, limping. Eli stood in the doorway of his burning cabin, his face covered in ash, his shirt torn, his hands bleeding, but still strong. And then he saw him, the man leading the hunters, Captain Rek. Same armor, same grin, same monster eyes. "Hello, Voss," Rek said. "Miss me?" Eli stared at him without blinking. "I see you're still good at hunting children." Rek shrugged. "Business is business. You could have joined me." Eli stepped forward. "And you could have stayed human." The rain started again, like in the past. But this time Eli wasn't walking away. This time, the battlefield was his home, and he would protect it, with or without a weapon, with or without mercy. Inside the cellar, Saya opened the trapdoor just enough to hear a single sentence. "You want the girl? You'll have to kill me first." The trigger word rain fell like cold nails on the roof. The sky growled above Veralune. Thunder cracked in the distance, but inside the destroyed cabin, two old soldiers stood face to face. One had abandoned war, the other had become war. "Captain," Rex smiled behind his half-broken helmet. His black armor reflected firelight from Eli's burning kitchen. He didn't raise his weapon. Not yet. He was enjoying this. "Still using knives, Voss?" Rex chuckled. "Old-fashioned, just like your morals." Eli didn't answer. He gripped his blade tighter, body wet with rain, blood, and smoke. His eyes never blinked. His mind replayed the sounds of Saya's voice, the fear, the pain, and her father's name. Thalos Zira, a soldier, a friend, a hero. Now his daughter hid below while monsters stood above. Suddenly, Rek gestured behind him. Two more hunters stepped forward. They dragged something between them. A small bag. Saya's. Eli's chest tightened. "Funny what we found near the stream," Rek said. "She's here, isn't she?" Eli stayed silent. Rek leaned forward. "We just want the girl. Give her up. You've already lost everything else." Still, Eli didn't move. One of the hunters raised his rifle. That's when Saya's voice rang out from the cellar trapdoor. "Wait!" Everyone froze. She stood halfway up, shaking but firm. "I'm here," she said, voice trembling. "But you won't take me. Not again." Rek laughed. "Brave little hybrid." Saya looked at Eli and said a sentence that made the world stop. "He's my father's blood brother." Time froze for Eli. The air grew heavier. His breath caught in his throat. She remembered. Or maybe her father had told her stories. Eli dropped the blade. Rek looked confused. "What did she say?" Eli stepped forward. "Thalos Zira called me his brother in battle, and I buried him with my own hands." Rek's smile faded. Then Saya screamed, "So why are you still holding back, Eli? Fight like my father taught you." And just like that, the vow shattered, like breaking chains in his chest. Eli's mind changed. The silence he'd lived in cracked open. The ghosts of war didn't disappear. They stood behind him now, not to haunt him, to fight with him. Eli's eyes turned cold. He picked up the fallen hunter's blaster. Everyone froze. Rek raised his hands, grinning again. "There he is. There's the old Voss." Eli took a step forward. "You made a mistake." "Oh? You thought I was protecting her because she's weak." He loaded the rifle. "I'm protecting her because she's the reason I'm human again." And then he fired. Not at Rek, but at the two guards holding Saya's bag. The shot hit one in the chest, the second in the leg. Both dropped fast. The fight exploded. Smoke grenades rolled, alarms screamed, flash flares popped in white and green light. Eli moved like lightning, shooting, rolling, striking. He didn't aim to kill. He aimed to cripple, confuse, trap. This wasn't rage. This was precision. This was the real Eli Voss, the one even Rek used to fear. Saya ducked back down into the cellar, heart pounding. The echo of her words still ringing in her ears. "Fight like my father taught you." She didn't mean to say it, but maybe she needed to. Because for the first time, she realized something. This man wasn't just protecting her. He was fighting for his soul. Above, Rek fell back into the shadows, retreating as 2 more of his men were taken down. His smile faded into a snarl. "All right, Voss," he growled. "You want war? I'll bring the rest." He vanished into the forest, but Eli didn't follow. He knew what was coming. A real battle. Maybe the last one. He stood in the rain, blood dripping from his hands, looking down at the weapon he swore never to use again, and he whispered, "One last time." One last war. Eli Voss didn't sleep that night. He stood on the roof of the half-burned cabin, rain pouring down, smoke rising from the last fight. His uniform was torn, his arm was bleeding, but his grip on the blaster was steady. The forest in front of him was quiet again. Too quiet. He knew it was the silence before the storm. Below in the cellar, Saya stared at the trap door, holding the wooden stick he had once given her. She didn't feel like a child anymore, not after what she had seen. Eli had changed. No. He had returned to who he truly was. Not a killer, a protector. And now, he was alone against an army. At dawn, the air changed. The ground rumbled. A black ship, larger than before, hovered above the trees and lowered quietly. Soldiers in jet black armor dropped down like shadows, their helmets scanning the land. Captain Rek stood at the front. He wasn't smiling anymore. "Send them all in," he ordered. "I want Voss broken." Eli heard them coming, not just footsteps. Marching, 10 soldiers, maybe more. He stood by the cabin's edge and waited. As the first 3 approached, his traps went off. Blinding lights, smoke bursts, sound grenades. The forest lit up with confusion. That was the signal. Eli moved like a ghost through the fog. He took one out with a surprise blow to the head, another with a shock dart to the neck. The third reached for his blaster. Too slow. Eli didn't miss. Back inside the cellar, Saya couldn't take it anymore. She climbed out, ignoring Eli's warning. She found a spare comlink, cracked and old, but it worked. She sent a distress signal to the nearby Veralune village. Human under attack. "They're here for me, please help us." She didn't know if anyone was listening, but she had to try. Meanwhile, Eli kept moving. This wasn't war. This was surgical survival. He knew this land better than anyone. He used it. He led the soldiers into the ravine where hidden spike traps waited. He dropped a tree with a blast charge behind them, cutting their path off. But still more came. And with them, Rek. Rek watched from the shadows, speaking into his helmet mic. "He's buying time," he muttered. "For what?" Then he paused. He noticed something. Eli wasn't killing anyone, just disabling them, wounding, avoiding death. Same as before. That made Rek angry. He still thinks he's better than me. Finally, Eli reached the center of the clearing, his old training ground. He stood there, breathing hard, surrounded by fallen enemies. But more shadows came. Rek stepped into view, blaster raised. "Why do you fight, Voss?" he yelled. "You know you can't win." Eli replied calmly, "I'm not fighting to win." Rek blinked. "I'm fighting to show her who her father's brother really was." Then, without warning, a beam of light shot down from the sky. Not from Rek's ship. From above the trees. The villagers. A few old ships. Patched and slow but brave. They had heard Saya's signal. And they came. Farmers. Miners. Traders. They weren't soldiers, but they brought tools, spears, old rifles, and fire in their eyes, because they had seen Eli live among them, because they had seen him feed the hungry, fix roofs, treat wounds, because they saw him as one of their own, and they came to stand beside him. Rek backed away. "What is this?" Eli smirked. "This is what real strength looks like." The villagers shouted as they rushed in, surrounding the hunters from all sides. Rek growled, fall back now! Eli didn't chase them. He stood there in the middle of the field, rain now turning warm under the new sunrise. His weapon lowered, his body shook, but in his heart, peace returned. Saya ran to him, tears in her eyes. He looked at her, exhausted but smiling. You did this, he said. You brought them. She nodded, speechless. He dropped the weapon again. This time for good. A new oath. The battlefield was quiet again, not the kind of quiet that comes before war, but the kind that comes after victory. Eli Voss stood among the broken weapons and dropped helmets. The last of the black-armored hunters had retreated to their ship and flown off without a word. They had come expecting fear, but they found something stronger, a human who refused to surrender, and a village that stood beside him. Smoke drifted into the sky as villagers gathered. Old farmers patted Eli on the back. Children stared in awe. A few offered him fruit, unsure how to thank him. Eli gave a quiet nod to each one, but his eyes searched for only one person. Saya. She stood near the edge of the forest, where her old wooden stick still lay in the mud. The storm had passed, but her eyes held the weight of everything they had survived. Eli walked up slowly. Neither of them spoke at first. Then she whispered, You broke your vow. Eli looked down at his hands, still cut, still trembling. Yes, he said. She stepped forward. Would you do it again, if it meant saving someone like me? Eli didn't hesitate. I'd do it again, Saya. Every time. But next time, I won't wait so long to pick up the fight. Later that evening, the villagers built a fire, not for warmth, but for healing. The flames danced as Saya sat with the children, telling them stories of her father. Not sad stories, but brave ones, stories where aliens and humans fought side by side, where honor mattered more than species, where warriors didn't carry hate, only duty. And in every tale, Eli Voss had now earned his place. Far from the fire, Eli stood under the stars. He looked up at the sky, at constellations he still didn't know. The stars here were not Earth's, but somehow they felt like home now. He pulled a small badge from his pocket, the symbol of Unit Black Veil, cracked, burned, useless. He dropped it in the fire. It hissed, sparked, and vanished. Saya walked over quietly. I didn't know people could change so much, she said. They don't, Eli replied. Not really, but sometimes they remember who they used to be. She nodded. Will you stay? She asked. He looked at her. You still want me around even after all that? You're the only one who ever made me feel safe. Eli smiled, just a little. Then I'll stay. Not as a soldier, not even as a protector. She tilted her head. Then what? As family. If you'll have me. She didn't answer with words. She just reached out and held his hand. And for the first time in years, Eli let someone hold it. Not because he needed saving, but because he'd finally earned peace. Days passed. Then weeks. The cabin was rebuilt. Stronger this time. Saya planted her first crop beside Eli's. He taught her how to fish. She taught him how to laugh again. No one wore armor. No one carried weapons. But every night, just before the sun disappeared, behind the hills, Eli would stand near the stream, watching, listening, protecting, not out of fear, but out of love. And when the first travelers came asking for help, when the story spread of a human warrior who defied a death squad for a scared alien girl, when people said, "Will he fight for us too?" Eli answered with a calm voice and steady heart, "I don't fight for war. I fight for peace worth protecting."